On the pragmatics of communication, Habermas compiles essays that delve into his theories on language, communication, and the social implications of how individuals engage in discourse. This work stands as a key contribution to Habermas' broader project of understanding rationality and modernity, particularly his interest in how communication can foster social cohesion, legitimize democratic norms, and reveal the conditions for true understanding in human interactions. Habermas' fundamental idea is rooted in his concept of communicative action, where language serves not just as a medium for conveying information, but as a tool for achieving mutual understanding. This perspective challenges earlier philosophical traditions that reduced language to mere expressions of subjective experience or systems of symbols. For Habermas, communication is a social act grounded in the intersubjective exchange of meaning, where participants engage in a process of reaching understanding, Verständigung, which is the ultimate goal of discourse. He contrasts this with strategic action, where language is employed to achieve particular goals, without regard for mutual understanding. In strategic action, individuals manipulate language to control or influence others, aligning with power dynamics, rather than fostering equal participation. Habermas takes up the pragmatic dimension of communication, which refers to how language is used in everyday life to coordinate social actions. Drawing from speech act theory, he examines how utterances are not just descriptive, but performative, meaning that they do things in the world, whether it's making a promise, giving a command, or asserting a fact. This performative aspect is essential to how language functions in social contexts. Habermas builds on the work of philosophers like Austin and Searle, who first proposed that speech acts have performative force. However, Habermas extends these ideas by situating them within a broader social theory, emphasizing how these acts are embedded in specific contexts and shaped by social norms and power relations. A key aspect of Habermas' theory of communication is the concept of validity claims, which are implicit in every communicative act. According to Habermas, when individuals engage in conversation, they are making three distinct claims: truth, whether the statement is factually accurate; rightness, whether the statement conforms to social norms or moral standards; and sincerity, whether the speaker is genuinely expressing their beliefs or intentions. These validity claims are often unspoken but underpin every interaction. They are also the basis on which communication can be critiqued or contested. If one of these claims is challenged, communication can break down, but it can also be repaired through rational discourse, where participants work to resolve misunderstandings or conflicts. For Habermas, rational discourse is essential for resolving disagreements and fostering democratic deliberation. He introduces the concept of the ideal speech situation, where participants engage in dialogue free from coercion, manipulation, or distortion. In this ideal setting, each person has an equal opportunity to speak, to challenge, and to be heard. While this ideal may not be fully attainable in real-life situations, it serves as a guiding principle for evaluating the fairness and rationality of actual communication practices. The closer a communicative situation comes to this ideal, the more likely it is to foster genuine understanding and consensus. In contrast, when power imbalances or strategic manipulation dominate, communication becomes distorted and social relations suffer. Habermas is particularly interested in the role of communication in modern democracies, where he believes that rational discourse can provide a foundation for legitimate governance. He argues that democratic legitimacy arises not merely from elections or laws, but from the continuous process of public deliberation, where citizens engage in reasoned debate over political issues. This process, which Habermas refers to as deliberative democracy, requires open and inclusive communication, where different perspectives can be aired, and where consensus is reached through dialogue rather than coercion. The health of a democracy, therefore, depends on the quality of its communicative practices. Habermas contrasts this model with more traditional forms of democracy, where decisions are made through top-down authority, or where public opinion is shaped by strategic media manipulation. A central theme in Habermas' work is the idea that modern societies are increasingly dominated by what he calls system mechanisms, such as markets and bureaucracies, which operate on the basis of instrumental rationality. These systems are concerned with efficiency, control, and power, and they often colonize the life world, which is the domain of personal relationships, culture, and communication. In the life world, people engage in communicative action to build social bonds and establish norms, but as the system expands, it encroaches on these personal spaces, turning communicative interactions into strategic ones. Habermas warns against the dangers of this colonization, arguing that it leads to alienation, disenfranchisement, and a breakdown in social cohesion. To resist this colonization, Habermas advocates for strengthening communicative action in both the private and public spheres. He believes that public discourse, whether it happens in the media, in political institutions, or in everyday interactions, should be oriented toward mutual understanding rather than manipulation. By fostering open dialogue and critical reflection, individuals can resist the pressures of instrumental rationality and maintain the integrity of the life world. This approach reflects Habermas' commitment to both democratic ideals and human autonomy, as he sees communicative rationality as the basis for freedom and self-determination. Habermas also addresses the normative implications of his theory. He is concerned not just with how communication works, but with how it ought to work. His theory of communicative action provides a framework for critiquing instances where communication breaks down due to power imbalances, manipulation, or coercion. He believes that communicative practices should be judged by their ability to foster understanding, resolve conflicts, and promote social integration. This normative dimension is tied to his broader project of critical theory, which seeks to identify and challenge forms of domination and alienation in modern society. One of the key challenges Habermas grapples with is how to apply his ideal of communicative rationality to real-world contexts where power, inequality, and ideology often distort communication. He acknowledges that achieving the ideal speech situation is difficult, especially in complex pluralistic societies, where different groups have conflicting interests and values. However, He argues that striving toward this ideal is necessary if societies are to avoid the dangers of authoritarianism, technocracy, and social fragmentation. For Habermas, the ultimate goal is to create a more rational and democratic society, where decisions are made through inclusive and reasoned debate rather than through force or manipulation. Habermas also touches on the role of modern media in shaping public discourse. He is critical of the way mass media can be used to manipulate public opinion through sensationalism, propaganda, or commercial interests. In this sense, the media often serves the interests of the system rather than the life world, turning public discourse into a spectacle rather than a space for genuine deliberation. However, Habermas also sees potential in new forms of media, particularly those that encourage participation and dialogue, such as alternative press or online forums. These platforms can help reinvigorate public discourse by providing spaces for marginalized voices and fostering a more democratic exchange of ideas.